If you've ever felt completely fine canceling plans. If staying home feels like relief instead of missing out. If a quiet night alone feels richer than a crowded room full of noise. You've probably been told you're too antisocial. Or that you need to get out more. But here's something people don't often say out loud. For many highly intelligent people, staying home isn't isolation. It's regulation. It doesn't look like a big deal, but it says more than you think. Because when someone consistently prefers staying home, it's rarely about laziness, and it's rarely about fear. It's about how their mind works. Highly intelligent people tend to process more, not just information but tone shifts, facial expressions, contradictions, subtext. They notice the thing you didn't say, the pause between words, the slight change in energy. And that level of awareness is stimulating. Sometimes overstimulating. When they walk into a social setting, their brain doesn't just hang out. It analyzes, it maps dynamics, it predicts outcomes, it tracks emotional currents in the room. While everyone else is relaxing, they're calculating not in a manipulative way but in a perceptive one. After a while, that becomes exhausting. So staying home isn't avoidable. It's decompression. It's the only place where the mind doesn't have to be on. And here's something else most people miss. Highly intelligent people don't crave constant external stimulation. Their internal world is already active enough. They replay conversations, they imagine possibilities, they build theories, they question assumptions, they connect ideas that seem unrelated. A quiet evening alone isn't empty to them. It's full. Full of thoughts, full of exploration, full of internal dialogue. In fact, sometimes social settings feel slower than their own mind. Small talk feels repetitive, predictable, surface level. They're not judging people, they're just bored by conversations that never go deeper than logistics, gossip, or social updates. And over time, they start associating social environments with mental fatigue rather than excitement. But here where it gets interesting. The real reason highly intelligent people prefer staying home isn't just overstimulation. It's control. At home, they control the environment, the noise level, the lighting, the timing, the depth of interaction. Control isn't about dominance. It's about predictability. Intelligent minds tend to think several steps ahead. Unpredictable social situations introduce variables they can't map in advance. Unexpected questions, emotional outbursts, social pressure to respond quickly. And quick responses don't always align with deep thinkers. They prefer processing before speaking, reflecting before reacting. In group settings, that pause can be misread as awkwardness or detachment. So staying home becomes a space where their rhythm isn't misinterpreted. There's no pressure to perform socially. No pressure to respond instantly. No pressure to dilute thoughts to fit the pace of the room. And then there's another layer. Highly intelligent people often struggle with feeling misunderstood. Not in a dramatic way, in a subtle way. They'll explain an idea and watch it land halfway. They'll share a curiosity and see eyes glaze over. They'll express nuance and get a simplified reply. Over time, that creates a quiet friction. It's not that they think they're better, it's that they're tired of translating themselves. Home becomes the one place where they don't have to compress their thoughts. They don't have to shrink ideas to fit attention spans. They don't have to pretend interest in conversations that feel mentally thin. And that relief becomes addictive. But it goes even deeper than intellectual stimulation. There's an emotional component most people overlook. Highly intelligent individuals tend to be highly self-aware, and high self-awareness can make social spaces complex. They notice when they're talking too much. They notice when they're too quiet. They analyze their own tone mid-sentence. They replay how something might have been perceived. That constant meta-awareness creates a second layer of mental activity. It's not just the conversation happening. It's the conversation about the conversation happening inside their head. And that's tiring. At home, that layer softens. There's less self-monitoring, less impression management, less subconscious scanning for social missteps. It's not that they dislike people. It's that social interaction requires more cognitive bandwidth than most realize. And when your brain already runs hot, you become selective about where you spend that energy. Now here's the part people often misunderstand. Preferring to stay home doesn't mean lacking social skills. In fact, many highly intelligent people are extremely capable socially. They can read rooms well, they can adapt to language, they can carry conversations. But capability doesn't equal desire. They can socialize. They just don't always want to. Because they're aware of the invisible cost. And that cost isn't just energy. It's deep. Highly intelligent people crave meaningful exchanges, conversations that stretch, ideas that challenge, silence that's comfortable. When social interactions consistently stay surface level, something inside them disengages. They start to feel alone in rooms full of people. And solitude begins to feel less lonely than company. That's not arrogance. That's alignment. And here, another angle. Staying home is often where their identity stabilizes. Outside, there are roles to play: friend, colleague, family members, the smart one, the quiet one, the deep thinker. Inside alone, those labels dissolve. They're not performing intelligence. They're simply existing in it. That difference matters more than it looks. Because when your identity has been shaped around being the intelligent one, social spaces can feel subtly evaluative. Are you insightful enough? Are you interested enough? Are you contributing something valuable? At home, there's no audience, no evaluation, no subtle competition of wit or status. Just stillness. And in that stillness, many intelligent people feel most like themselves. But there's also something protective happening. When you think deeply, you often feel deeply. You see patterns in relationships, you notice inconsistencies, you anticipate outcomes. That awareness can make you cautious. Not fearful, cautious. Because you understand how quickly energy can shift, how easily dynamics can change, how fragile social harmony sometimes is. So you become selective. Not because you're antisocial, but because you value psychological safety. And safety is easier to maintain in controlled environments. Now, this doesn't mean highly intelligent people never enjoy socializing. It means they prefer intentional interaction. One-on-one conversations over large groups. Deep discussions over loud parties. Quality over frequency. But the world often rewards visibility. The loudest voice, the most outgoing personality, the constant presence. So when someone consistently chooses solitude, it can look like withdrawal. But often it's discernment. And once you see that, something shifts. Staying home isn't always a sign of disconnection. Sometimes it's a sign of inner richness. Sometimes it's a mind protecting its energy. Sometimes it's a person choosing depth over noise. And yes, there can be downsides. Over-isolation can narrow perspectives, too much internal processing can create loops. But the preference itself, it's not random. It's a pattern rooted in how certain minds are wired. Highly intelligent people often don't avoid the world because they can't handle it. They step back because they see too much of it. They feel too much of it. They process too much of it. And home becomes the one place where the input slows down enough to breathe. So if you've ever wondered why staying home feels more natural than being out, why canceling plans feels like relief instead of regret, why solitude feels productive even when you're doing nothing, it may not be laziness. It may not be social anxiety. It may simply be the rhythm of a mind that runs deep. And once you recognize that pattern, you stop labeling yourself incorrectly. You stop forcing yourself into environments that drain you just to appear normal. You understand that preference isn't a deficiency. It's design. And that awareness alone changes how you see yourself. Because it was never random. It was never a weakness. It was a pattern. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. If this explains something you've quietly noticed about yourself, there's always more beneath the surface. Understanding your patterns is where clarity begins.